Welcome back to another deep dive for the Prana and Prose channel. I'm really excited about this one today.
Yeah, me too. We're getting into some pretty heavy behavioral science.
We really are. So, for everyone listening, you know that picture you have in your head of a life-changing moment.
Right, like a lightning bolt hitting you on a mountaintop.
Exactly, like some cinematic epiphany where the clouds part and your whole worldview just like instantly rewires itself.
Which is a great image, but it's almost never how it actually
No,
happens.
not at all.
Yeah.
What if the ultimate catalyst for human greatness is actually just the really annoying repetitive beep of a digital alarm clock in a pitch black room?
I love that framing
Yeah,
because we heavily romanticize the concept of transformation.
we really do. We wait for this booming voice from the heavens or a stroke of absolute genius.
But the reality of elite performance is, well, it's grounded in these cold, kind of unglamorous mechanics. It's about what you choose to do when everyone else is just entirely unconscious.
It's an invisible battleground, right?
It's exactly an invisible battleground.
And that invisible battleground is exactly what we're dissecting today.
Yeah.
We are going to decode the daily routines of world builders, of history makers, and extract the exact behavioral science hidden inside Robin Sharma's massive international phenomenon, the 5 a.m. Club.
Yeah, we're really going to strip away the hyperbole here.
Right. We want the actual daily mechanics. And Sharma's approach with this material is it's super fascinating because he bypasses the traditional dry textbook format, right?
Yeah, he doesn't just hand you a list of neurological data and productivity hacks. He actually encases these deeply disruptive methodologies inside a parable.
It's a romantic parable, yeah.
Right, because we're biologically wired to learn through narrative. So he uses this story as a sort of Trojan horse.
To deliver this massive structural overhaul for, how we manage our focus and our cognitive potential.
Exactly.
So let's start with a general summary overview of the book's premise. The narrative centers around three main characters. First, you got this entrepreneur. She built a massive tech company from her college dorm room. But right now, at the start of the story, she's in a state of just absolute existential dread.
She's facing a hostile takeover, right, from her own investors.
Yeah, her own investors. The betrayal is so acute, she's literally contemplating suicide. It's really dark.
It is.
And then you have the second character, the artist. He's frustrated, he's brimming with potential, but he is entirely paralyzed by procrastination.
Just massive self-sabotage.
Right. And, as a last resort to find some direction, the entrepreneur decides to attend a seminar by this legendary personal optimization guru.
Known simply as the Spellbinder.
The Spellbinder, yeah. And the artist happens to be there too. But before the seminar can really get going, this revered elderly guru suddenly just collapses on stage.
Total chaos in the room.
Total chaos. And amidst all that, the entrepreneur and the artist cross paths. But then they're suddenly interrupted by this very bizarre stranger.
A stranger who basically becomes the linchpin for this entire philosophy we're unpacking today.
Yeah, so this guy, he looks like he's been sleeping on the street. He's disheveled. His clothes are a mess.
But then the artist notices something.
Right. He notices this homeless-looking guy is wearing a massive, wildly expensive watch, like a $100,000 Dever-style timepiece.
Right, which makes no sense.
And no sense at all. And later, the man casually shows off this chiseled physique, like an elite athlete. And it turns out this eccentric stranger is actually Stone Riley.
A wildly successful, highly eccentric billionaire.
Yeah. And the mission of our episode today is really digging into what Riley tells them. He explains that his immense wealth and his joy, they don't stem from a trust fund.
Right, it's not inherited wealth.
No, it's the byproduct of a single keystone habit that the Spellbinder taught him decades ago. The habit of rising at 5 a.m.
Which is the core of everything. Riley embodies this idea that true mastery is cultivated in the dark.
So Riley strikes a deal with the two of them. He promises to teach them the morning routine of billionaires, the biological and psychological architecture of it all.
But only if they take a leap of faith.
Right. They have to meet him the very next morning at exactly 5 a.m. And they actually do it.
Which kicks off this insane globetrotting journey. They go from Mauritius to the Taj Mahal to Rome.
Just to learn what he calls the ultimate secret to mastery, the 20-20-20 formula.
And that's what we're going to follow today. We're going to track their journey chronologically, moving from this really deep personal despair straight into the actual granular mechanics of peak performance.
Let's get into section 1, which covers chapters 1 through 6, the catalyst for change. The host, well, I'm just so excited to unpack this dramatic opening. The entrepreneur is feeling so betrayed, she attends this seminar out of sheer desperation.
And this connects directly to the book's core thesis. Before the spellbinder collapses, he diagnoses this societal disease that I think it really resonates with people right now.
Yeah, he talks about society suffering from what he calls deprofessionalization.
Deprofessionalization and a collective addiction to digital distraction. He actually calls the modern workforce a culture of cyber zombies.
Cyber zombies.
Well,
Like,
yeah. Because we've become chemically addicted to interruption, you know?
yeah.
We're measuring our internal self-worth by external algorithmic metrics.
Likes, views, shares.
Exactly. And this constant ambient superficiality, it just drains your cognitive bandwidth. You
Oh, yeah.
cannot produce masterwork when your attention is fractured into 1,000 micro-interactions every hour.
It's like meeting Stone Riley is almost like meeting a wizard who offers you a magic pill. But the pill is literally just an alarm clock.
That's a great analogy.
He promises to teach them these routines if they meet him at 5 a.m. So they take the loop, they show up, and the next thing they know, they're on a private jet emblazoned with 5AC heading to Mauritius.
The 5 a.m. club.
Right. And on the flight, Riley hands them this gold tablet, and it has these foundational rules on it.
These are so important. Let's analyze a few of them. Rule number 1 is, addiction to distraction is the end of creative production.
Which goes back to the cyber zombie thing.
Exactly.
Mm.
It's about taking that 1 hour for yourself before dawn in the serenity that lies beyond complexity.
I love that phrase. The serenity beyond complexity. And then rule 3, all change is hard at first, messy in the middle, and gorgeous at the end.
Which is such a vital psychological reframe. Because, normally we interpret discomfort as a signal to just stop.
Right, like, oh, this hurts, I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, but Riley's saying, no, that discomfort is the exact biological sensation of neurological growth.
No.
If it's not hard, you aren't changing.
And rule 4 really pushes that. To get the results of the top 5%, you must do what the 95% are unwilling to do.
Which means you have to be comfortable being misunderstood. Society normalizes mediocrity and exhaustion. Waking up at 5 a.m. is inherently eccentric to most people.
Okay, but let me push back on this a bit.
Sure.
For everyone listening who is thinking, okay, let's unpack this. Is this just about punishing yourself by waking up early? Is there an actual biological advantage here? Or are we just glorifying being a freak who doesn't sleep?
That is the most common pushback. But it is absolutely not about punishment, and it's definitely not about sleep deprivation. It's about escaping that cyber zombie state.
Escaping the reactive mode.
Right. Waking up at 5 a.m. provides an hour of serenity where you aren't playing defense against the world. You are protecting your assets of genius.
So it's about being proactive.
Exactly. But understanding why you need to change is very different from knowing what to change inside yourself.
Which leads us beautifully into section 2.
Yeah.
The neuroscience of morning genius and the 4 interior empires. So they arrive in Mauritius, they're on the beach, and plot twist, they discover the spellbinder is alive.
He survived the collapse and he's recovering there.
Yeah. And Riley starts teaching them what he calls the 3-step success formula. Better awareness leads to better choices, which leads to better results.
It sounds kind of basic at first, right? Like a motivational poster.
Totally.
But he uses it to contrast how average performers operate versus the top 5%. Average performers are stuck in superficiality, but the elite operate with what Sharma calls granularity.
Granularity. Like an obsession with the tiny details.
Exactly. A rigorous attention to the tiniest details of their craft. And you can't have granularity if your brain is constantly distracted.
Which brings us to the actual biological magic of 5 a.m. And this is where it gets really interesting for me. It's this concept of transient hypofrontality.
Yes, transient hypofrontality is huge. So your prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain responsible for complex planning, worrying, and overthinking. It's your inner critic.
The voice telling you you're going to fail.
Right. But at 5 a.m., the profound silence of dawn actually temporarily shuts down the prefrontal cortex. It powers down.
Wait, really? It just turns off?
Temporarily, yes. Your inner critic is essentially asleep at the wheel. And while that's happening, your brain waves shift. They move from the fast, anxious beta waves of normal daytime stress down into alpha waves, and sometimes even into theta waves.
Which triggers pure genius and the flow state.
Exactly. Dopamine and serotonin are released. You literally stop managing your time and start managing your focus because your brain chemistry is optimized for it.
Okay, so that's the brain science. But most self-help books, they just hammer on this one idea. Mindset. Just fix your mindset. But Riley says mindset is only 25% of the puzzle. He introduces 4 interior empires that you have to cultivate during that 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. window, which he calls the victory hour.
Right, because if you only focus on mindset, which is your psychology and awareness, you're missing the rest of the picture.
It's like a four-wheel drive vehicle, right?
Yeah.
If you only focus on mindset, you're driving with 3 flat tires, you aren't going to get very far.
That's a perfect analogy. So the second empire is heart set. That's your emotionality.
Releasing toxic emotions, right?
Yeah, releasing anger and resentments and actively amplifying gratitude. Because a great mindset with a poor, toxic heart set will always lead to self-sabotage.
Wow. And the third is health set, which is basically just your physiology.
Physical fitness. You have to armor plate your physical energy. You can't be a world builder if you're constantly exhausted and sick.
It makes total sense. And the fourth is soul set, your spirituality.
And this isn't necessarily religious. It's about reconnecting with your inner hero in total silence, getting away from societal validation, away from the likes, the selfies, the net worth.
Just remembering who you actually are. Mindset, heart set, health set, soul set. And Riley connects this to the idea of day stacking, doesn't he?
He does. Day stacking is basically compounding interest applied to your habits. If you elevate any area by just 1% daily, that tiny macro impact delivers a 365% elevation in a year.
Just microscopic daily focus.
Exactly.
But, okay, let's be real. How do we actually make this 5 a.m. wake-up call stick? Because I know people listening have tried this, and by day 3, they hit snooze and just give up.
Oh, absolutely. The friction is real.
Right. So we have to travel to India to learn the actual neuroscience of habit formation. This is section 3, the Taj Mahal and the habit installation protocol.
Right, chapters 11 and 12.
So after this, kind of romantic moment between the entrepreneur and the artist, which is hilarious because Riley interrupts them on a jet ski wearing a pirate hat.
He is incredibly eccentric.
He really is. So he flies them to Agra, India, to teach them directly at the Taj Mahal. And he introduces this specific metric, the 66-day minimum.
Yeah, forget the old myth that it takes 21 days to form a habit.
It's 66 days.
According to research from University College London, yes, it takes exactly 66 days to wire in a new habit to the point of automaticity. And Riley breaks his protocol down into 3 22-day phases.
Okay, let's walk through these. Stage 1 is destruction.
Destruction. It literally feels like an interior renovation. You are bulldozing an old neural pathway. So your cortisol is elevated, you will feel scared, you'll be exhausted, and you will absolutely want to quit every single day.
That sounds awful.
It's the hard at first part of the rule.
Okay, so then stage 2, installation.
This is the messy middle. The old habit is gone, but the new one isn't fully there yet. Neural pathways are actively being formed. It feels chaotic. Mystics call it the dark night of the soul.
Just total confusion.
Yeah.
But then you finally hit stage 3, integration.
Right. The new normal. The habit becomes automatic. It actually becomes easier to wake up at 5 a.m. than it does to sleep in.
And to get there, Riley teaches them the lifetime habit arc. Trigger, ritual, reward, repetition.
The trigger is key. You have to set an alarm clock, 30 minutes fast, keep all your tech out of the bedroom, and literally sleep in your workout gear.
Sleep in your workout gear.
Yes. You have to jump out of bed before your rational mind can even formulate an excuse to stay under the covers.
Okay, but let me ask you this. What does this all mean for the listener who fails on day 15? When you're in that destruction phase, you're exhausted, your brain is literally screaming at you to go back to sleep. How do you push through that?
That's exactly why he brings them to the Taj Mahal. Riley has this rule. When you most feel like quitting is the time you must continue advancing. The Taj Mahal took decades of grueling labor to build. It's a metaphor for staying committed to an ideal through immense hardship.
So you just have to embrace the suffering.
Essentially, yes. Furthermore, you shouldn't do it alone. Group support is vital. That's why it's a club. The social architecture of the 5 a.m. club keeps you accountable when your willpower fails.
That makes a lot of sense. You lean on the group. Okay, so moving into section 4. Once you have the willpower to actually get out of bed, what exactly are you supposed to do with that golden hour?
Right, standing in the dark at 5 a.m. doesn't do much on its own.
Exactly. So the journey moves to Rome to uncover the actual core engine, 20-20-20 formula.
This is chapter 13. They are standing on the Spanish Steps in Rome at exactly 5 a.m., and Riley deconstructs the 60-minute victory hour into 3 precise 20-minute pockets.
Pocket 1 is MUE, from 5:00 to 5:00 to 5:20 a.m. Intense, sweaty exercise.
This is where the science gets really specific. When you wake up, your cortisol is peaking. It's the fear hormone. Sweating profusely cleanses that cortisol from your system.
Flushes it out.
Right. And it simultaneously increases dopamine for motivation and serotonin for happiness. But most importantly, it releases BDNF.
Brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
Exactly. Miracle Grow for the brain. It literally repairs brain cells and accelerates neural connections.
Wait. Sweat hard right away. Why not ease into the day, like maybe some meditation or a nice cup of coffee first?
Because gentle stretching doesn't release BDNF.
No.
This is non-negotiable. You have to flush out the sleep inertia and those fear hormones immediately to optimize the brain for the next 2 pockets.
Okay, so you're sweating, you're flushed, your brain is bathed in BDNF.
Yeah.
Then comes pocket 2, Reflect T, from 5:20 to 5:40 a.m.
This is where you journal, you meditate, plan, pray, or just contemplate.
What's the impact of that? Because it sounds like you're just writing a diary.
It's way more than that. It's about deepening your wisdom and processing low-energy, toxic emotions from the day before. You trap your anxieties on paper so they don't leak into your day. It actively boosts gratitude and expands your serenity before the chaos starts.
I see. And then pocket 3 is Jiro W, from 5:40 to 6:00 a.m.
Reading books, consuming audiobooks or educational podcasts, studying online courses.
The impact here is deepening your knowledge base. Right?
Yeah.
Just outlearning your competition.
Exactly. Riley calls it the 2x3x mindset. To double your income and impact, you have to triple your investment in personal mastery.
You know, it's funny. When I look at the 20-20-20 formula, I think of it like a daily software update for the human body.
Oh, how so?
Well, you clear the cache in the first 20 minutes, right? That's the move pocket, getting rid of the junk files and cortisol.
Like that.
Then you defragment the hard drive during the reflect pocket, organize your thoughts. And finally, you download entirely new capabilities during the grow pocket.
That is a brilliant analogy. You are manually installing updates to your mindset, heart set, health set, and soul set every single morning.
But you know, a perfect morning routine is completely useless if you're running on empty. Which leads us to Section 5, the catacombs, sleep, and the 10 tactics of lifelong genius.
Chapters 14 and 15. The club literally goes underground to understand rest.
They go deep into the Roman catacombs. And the spellbinder reappears to talk about the essentialness of sleep.
Which is so critical. He details how the brain literally washes itself during sleep through the glymphatic system. It flushes out metabolic waste.
And it produces, what, 75% of its human growth hormone, HGH, during sleep?
Yes. So if you cut your sleep short to hustle, you're leaving toxic waste in your brain and stunting your physical recovery. And he specifically targets blue light from screens.
Oh, the dreaded blue light.
It destroys melatonin production. If you stare at a screen at 9 p.m., your brain thinks it's noon.
So Riley gives them this strict pre-sleep ritual. Turn off all devices by 8 p.m. Take an Epsom salt bath, read a physical book, and sleep in a cool, dark room by 10 p.m.
All to ensure you get 5 complete 90-minute sleep cycles.
Exactly. And Riley actually maps out the whole day for them, doesn't he?
He does. It's a step-by-step timeline map.
Right. He highlights these zero technology zones in the morning and the evening, and he mandates a shift to lower value work, like administrivia, in the afternoons.
Front-loading the depth work when your cognitive energy is highest.
Okay, then the narrative shifts to São Paulo, Brazil. And this part is wild. The entrepreneur's car is ambushed by gunmen.
Mercenaries hired by her hostile investors.
Yeah, and she actually uses her new courage, built from her victory hours, to save the artist. And Riley rewards her by buying out those hostile investors.
She passes the ultimate stress test.
She really does. And after that, Riley shares what he calls the 10 tactics of genius. Can you synthesize a few of the key daily amplifiers he talks about?
Absolutely. One of the biggest is the 60-10 method. You work with ferocious intensity for exactly 60 minutes, and then you actively recover for 10 minutes.
Like take a walk or something.
Yeah, step away from the desk completely. Let your brain refuel.
And then there's the daily 5 concept.
Right. You list 5 tiny targets every single morning to accomplish. Just 5. It inoculates you against the brain's negativity bias because it yields over 1,800 victories a year. You train your brain to see yourself as a winner.
I love that. And what about the second wind workout, the 2WW?
That's a second, lighter workout, like a nature walk at the end of the workday. It beats that evening exhaustion, reduces sugar cravings, and oxygenates your blood before you go home to your family.
Okay, I have to jump in with some pushback here. This sounds incredibly rigid, like every hour of the day is mapped out. Work 60 minutes, rest 10 minutes. Where is the spontaneity in this life? Where is the joy?
It's the paradox of the whole system. Riley explains that this rigidity is what actually creates freedom.
How does being rigidly scheduled equal freedom?
Because when you leave your day to chance, you bleed time. You procrastinate, you scroll, you get distracted, but by ruthlessly structuring the execution of your mandatory work, you compress it. And that creates vast, protected, guilt-free spaces for your family, for nature, and for pure joy.
It prevents that slow bleed of time starvation.
Exactly. Discipline is the vehicle that delivers freedom.
Which perfectly sets up Riley's final lesson in Section 6. The twin cycles, joy is a GPS, and the hero's resolution.
They travel to the vineyards of South Africa for this one.
And he teaches them the twin cycles of elite performance. He says growth happens in the resting phase, not the performing phase.
Elite performance is a pulse. It's alternating high excellence cycles, which is intense work, with deep refueling cycles, which is just recovery and fun.
It's kind of like building muscle at the gym, right?
What do you mean?
Well, the lifting, the actual work, that tears the muscle. But the rest days are when the muscle actually repairs and grows.
That is exactly the biological mechanism. If you never rest, you just tear the muscle until it breaks.
And Riley also talks about using joy as a GPS.
Yes. You use joy to navigate your life choices. You seek out people, places, and pursuits that act as fuel, and you avoid the ones that act as energy thieves.
I really like that framing, energy thieves. And then he digs up this metal box in the vineyard.
The 11 magic charms.
Right. These maxims like collect miraculous experiences over material things, or failure inflates fearlessness. And my favorite, heaven on earth is a state, not a place.
It's not a destination you arrive at, it's an internal state you cultivate.
And that's his final departure. He kisses them goodbye, vanishes into the vineyard, and just leaves his mountain bike behind.
So dramatic to the very end.
It really is.
Yeah.
And then we get the epilogue, which is highly satisfying. The entrepreneur and the artist get married in Cape Town.
5 years later, right?
5 years later, her business is booming. The artist is a celebrated procrastination-free vegan. He runs marathons, takes yodeling classes.
Yodeling classes?
Yep. And they have a son named Stone, and they still wake up at 5 a.m. every single day. Oh, and the spellbinder is still alive and thriving.
It's a great wrap-up. To summarize the real value here, this book isn't just about sleep schedules. It is a comprehensive philosophy for rejecting societal mediocrity. It's about protecting your cognitive assets and manually coding heroism into your daily life through that 20-20-20 formula.
And for anyone wanting to try this, there are free tools available at robinsharma.com, like the Habit Installer app and the 66-Day Challenge.
Highly recommend checking those out.
So to leave you with a final provocative thought, you now know the mechanics of the top 5%. You know about the 66-day minimum. Think about that one specific life-changing habit you've been avoiding because it feels too messy.
We all have one.
If you were to start your own 66-day protocol tomorrow morning at 5:00 a.m., what is the exact messy middle you would have to endure to finally meet the hero sleeping inside of you?
That is a powerful question to end on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Tonight, set your alarms 30 minutes fast, and we'll see you next time.